everyone, and welcome to a special episode of Slay the Stars, our Cour 3 recap. We've released 2 other recap episodes, and if you listen to all 3, you'll be ready to hop into the show in Cour 4, which starts at episode 48. This episode is also useful for anyone who needs a little refresher on the story so far, because it's been a lot. The whole Cour focuses on Zem and Shar's dealings in Annenfell and starts with episode 33, Honored Guests. This was our first look into Annenfell, this futuristic, almost idyllic city apart from the rest of the world. It's clean, there are floating trolleys, we met Turiel, the captain of the guards, who becomes a friend. We also learn about hospitals and get our first look at the ship in the center of the city. Zem and Shar also spent the night in jail, waiting to have an audience with the elvish nobility in the morning. So my question for both of you, just to kind of round this part out, is what were your first impressions of Annenfell?
I'm going to be very honest. I have a really difficult time playing D&D in any setting other than your typical fantasy setting. So I wasn't prepared. But as you were describing things, and as we were dealing with the trolley and whatnot, I quickly got on board. It was a lot of fun discovering things and just having that small little nods to convenience and advancements and that kind of thing was a lot of fun.
I loved it. I think throughout the course of this Cour, Shar very much was James Marsden in Enchanted.
Oh, yeah.
Completely out of place, but it still worked. I mean, he didn't attack a bus, but I mean...
Yeah. Close.
Give it time.
There's still time. Pigeons.
Fucking pigeons. I love the joke in the background that Shar cannot get along with animals in general.
Especially birds.
Yeah, especially birds. Although, given what he did before, justified.
Yeah.
You mean in that tree?
Yep. It's a trauma. That was...
What a good moment. What a good moment.
I still have some of those feathers.
Oh.
The bag of holding is just full of them.
I do, because I got a bunch from Kai as well.
You did.
You also... Didn't you get a bone from Kai?
I got lots.
You got a bunch of shit.
She has so much creepy stuff.
I love it.
It's fine. We have creepy craft time in one of the upcoming episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can we do wow. Creepy craft time with Jen?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that'd be great Patreon content. So I'm just saying, creepy craft time.
100% this is happening.
Okay.
Good luck getting me to focus for the rest of this session.
Perfect. Well, on that note, we jump into episode 34, What the Elves Know. We get lots of interesting moments that further illustrate that Annenfell is a very different place than anything we've seen before. We see the statue of Einbel Thor, the hero of the Age of Splendor, for the first time, but the biggest piece here was the meeting with Rena Alharin, Annenfell's second and the daughter of the current king. Zem and Shar were honest with Rena, and she was fairly forthcoming with them. They spoke about the orb and considered what Nexus could possibly want with it. Zem and Shar also manifested their celestial selves for the first time, revealing Zem's inky darkness in contrast to Shar's pure light. Rena told the story of Ein sealing Nex away in the orb and enlightened us all to exactly what the stakes are if this item were to be used, or worse, opened. So I want to talk about the moment where you manifested this celestial piece of yourselves, because we've talked about it in the past, how you felt discovering the celestial ancestry and sort of having your race changed in the middle of a game. But are you excited? Are you nervous? Are there any thoughts or theories that you want to put out into the world about what you're currently feeling or thinking this could mean, or how it happened?
So first of all, I was completely blindsided. That was such a fun thing to discover. We've had this conversation before, though, where I love playing in your games because I know that I can give you general ideas and throw things out, and you're going to take those and run with it. And I love that. I don't really like writing super in-depth backgrounds because I feel like it can get in the way. And that we're able to then work together to make things make sense. And sometimes that gets amended down the road. I know this seems like an aside, but like this was that same sort of, it was fun to be given that to discover about myself. Cause like, think about you in the real world. Like, I don't fully know completely who I am. I discover things about myself all the time. So this was really cool. Um, as far as how or where it's going, I do have some theories. I don't really know that I want to talk about them though. I don't know which parent. I I have warring ideas. Um and they're not cohesive enough to talk about, which is why this sounds so stupid right now.
No, it's not stupid. I am so interested to hear where your thoughts are. That's all. So
Yeah,
throwing out there's good.
I think so like it would make sense for Zamira's mother to go after power and to be the one to initiate. Like that's very on brand.
Absolutely.
But I think that there's a certain amount of like cool mirroring if it wasn't Zem's mother but Zem's father. Because like why were they ever together in the first place?
It's a good question.
Right? Cuz like what we know of the two of them, he does not fit her bill. And like
No.
I cannot fathom why they would have ever gotten together unless he had something up his sleeve. So to me, it feels like this could have been that thing to like pull her in or whatever. Or maybe he really like wanted to be with her and I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities and I think that it would be surprising in a cool way if it was her father as opposed to her mother. But like as far as how they went about doing it, no clue. No clue.
Yeah, I'm getting super Rumpelstiltskin vibes from a
Yeah.
lot of this, and it
That literally never dawned on me, but that's
yeah.
funny. Yeah.
Um, but with Char's parents, you like Zem's father makes it's endlessly fascinating to me, his place in the world. But Char's parents, it's not that they intrinsically never made sense to him inherently. He just disagreed with it on a fundamental level. So they make more sense to make that kind of deal in my head. But Zem's parents, very confusing to me. So that's why I can't really form a cohesive theory because the evidence is just so opposite direction.
Yeah. I
But to answer your actual question, no, I did not. I was not prepared for that, and that one did actually throw me for a loop. But
Yeah.
now going back and listening to the music, knowing that Isaac knew that, really pisses me off that I didn't think about that to start.
I'm going to be honest with you. There's a lot of stuff that sort of reveals itself as we go, and I'm not a DM who writes everything down and like this is the story from the very beginning, but that moment, this thing has always 100% been a part of the story since the very beginning. And so like that reveal is one of my favorites from the entire campaign so far, and you finally getting the last piece of that puzzle. I will sleep so much better when we finally get there.
You know what I don't want to say bothers me, but like is a constant question in my head is that when we had that moment, and granted, the number of people that we revealed ourselves to it has been kept really small, but I don't understand how nobody ever made the comparison to what is happening and what her revelation looks like her inky darkness, because there's a lot dealing with her one-on-one where you're like, this bitch is a lot, but like also she's young and energetic and in general seems to be doing things to like help people, not just like not completely for her own sake, but to see that and to have a memory as old as the elves do collectively. How did nobody's ever questioned her. Nobody has ever made any statements around her about like what influenced this. Blows my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And they could be having those conversations behind closed doors, but Nobody's asking her. Nobody's probing.
Well, I mean, some people were clearly asking questions because you both ended up on a list.
Well, right, but I'm saying, like, not here
Yeah,
with
yeah.
what the elves know and the orb and where the orb comes from and what it means and, like, the tie-in there. Like,
Mhm.
Now I'm singing Hamilton.
That happens to me at least once a day, every day. Something
s-
reminds me to start singing Hamilton.
I've still never seen it.
Oh my God.
I'll give you my Disney Plus password.
I have it. I just haven't watched
Oh,
it.
okay. Well, then we're fine.
You just need to watch it. From here, we go to one of the last just full-on happy episodes we've had, which was
Strap in,
episode
folks.
35. Well, it wasn't even fully happy. We'll get to that. Episode 35, So and Tell, is a shopping episode. Light-hearted fun, which we're definitely known for. We get a ton of good information about Annenfell, and one of my favorite moments, which was Shar going to the doctor's office where he learned about physical healing and he was scarred for life. They also had
Literally.
you guys had a great time at the Fancy Tailor. But it's the end of the episode that gets a little spicy because Zem is busy mentally messaging her love interest while Reese, the sister of the elf who stole the orb for Nexus, breaks into Shar's room and stabs him.
Ouch.
And we'll learn more about that in the next episode. But my question for you regarding this one is, how much do you hate that every time I give you a happy moment, something horrible immediately happens?
I mean,
Oh, I
that's just
expected.
life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's just life. Like, that's real life. That's fantasy life. That's just what fucking happens.
Yeah, and I also think I've mentioned this before to you specifically, and you got mad at me, but then you still do it. I'm just
Yeah.
like, yeah, I don't trust anything that you give us ever because I know you're immediately going to be like, stab.
Yeah, well, listen, at least like I let you have like there are good things here. I just then stab you from the periphery.
Yeah, strap in. We're not done with this core recap yet.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, there could be a little space, but,
Mhm.
you know, whatever.
Mhm. But the whiplash is so good. You know, like, oh, look, Shar is getting flirted with by this cute tailor. Stab.
Oh, I knew it was coming. Who was doing the stabbing did surprise me, but I knew it was coming.
Episode 36, A Sister's Love. Shar has another dream of that throne room, the one where he met Adria weeks ago, and he's awoken from the dream by a dagger in his chest, and a quick fight breaks out with Reese. Shar and Zem are able to subdue her. Reese is arrested. This is an example of where bad rolls on my part saved your asses in a big way, because Reese should probably have been able to take one of you out. I didn't really want her to go to prison. That whole story arc was not what I had planned, but still really interesting.
You're over 2 on having somebody either go down or be captured.
Yeah, every time I try to like capture one of you, you almost kill or you kill them or almost kill them. So, but I want to know about that moment. How are you guys feeling in that moment? You were almost assassinated.
The throne room fascinates me because
throne room
I'm
is
desperately
fascinating.
looking for it in the world now
Mm-hmm.
because I know it's somewhere. I just don't know where. But being stabbed, completely expected. The way that went about, though, I think that if there was a point where she threw a poison knife at Zem,
Yeah.
Sharp probably would have lost his shit at that, and the fight would have gone a different route. Because if you notice, most of that fight, he didn't use magic.
Yeah. Well, and I pointed it out in another, I don't know if it was in one of our AMAs or if it was in the episode itself, but she threw the poison dagger at Zem
Mm-hmm.
because she was clearly okay with just killing Zem immediately, but she didn't poison you.
Yeah, she wanted me to suffer.
So she had other plans.
Mm-hmm. 100%. Like I said, 0 for 2 on captures.
Yeah.
I didn't just notice this, but I noticed it again. How fucking good the name of this episode is, because there's too many sisters that this could be put to, real or self-appointed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so good.
So good.
Yeah. From the dream to Zamira to Reese, just all around. Uh, I this is sort of like her bread and butter, Zem's bread and butter. Like, this is what she does. She does not control her emotions and flies off the handle in favor of doing anything she can for Shar. So, I think that I actually don't remember. It wasn't revealed in this episode what Shar was doing, like, after the fact. It was a couple episodes later, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. From there, we move on to episode 37, Ellen Istonome. You head to file the police report on what happened with Reese, and then you go to the school. The Ellen Istonome, the wizarding school in Annenfell. Shar got some picture books, along with some useful manuals on glass and stonework. Zem spent her time glancing at more like popular fiction, but also finds herself in the spellbook repository, where she meets her tutor, Eravon. This is a fairly cozy episode, actually. Nothing bad happens. So we're not even going to talk about it. We're going to go right to episode 38.
Hold on.
Oh, we have to talk about this?
No,
Okay.
well, I just have the briefest of, like, the number of books that Zamira currently has.
It's so many books.
Not to give anything away, but the next time we find ourselves traveling, Zem's going to be paying a whole lot of attention to all of those books that she has.
Good.
She's ready to spend time discovering. So
Good.
Yeah, also, I love a good fantasy library.
Yeah.
The fact that you made this like a pocket dimension space library that is just huge.
Yeah.
My main characters that I play are artificers and wizards. And I was just like, I can't nerd out about this right now. But
my brain went very MC Escher about it. Like,
that's exactly what I was picturing in my brain. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very cool.
Yeah. Super fun.
so yes, so kudos is what I wanted to say more than
thank
anything, because I love a goddamn library.
Yeah. I love it as well.
And also I love how out of place we were.
You're so
I
out of place.
loved how out of place. They're just like, who is that?
And
we have to walk to the other end of the library.
And also so, like, accepting. And can I just say that Zem in all her friggin' haughtiness and like, okay, I'm sure your library is adorable, and then walking in is exactly the reason why representation matters and that everyone should get out of their fucking bubble and go experience other cultures. I'll get off my soapbox.
Yeah.
That's the only time I think you've been truly humbled, though. Like that. Like, where
Yeah.
you're like, nope, I was wrong. I am so sorry.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite parts about Annenfell, I think, is because there were so many moments that Zem had to deal with that emotion in particular, right? So many moments where she was talking to these other wizards, to just random people, like Turiel saying like, oh, I'm just a captain of the guards because I'm not that magically talented. And then him being like, yeah, I'm like the fifth circle or something. And Zem being like, that's not magically talented here. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, he's a paladin. Fuck.
yeah, but like Zem handled it so well, and Jen, you role played it so well because like obviously Zem didn't just like take it, you know, she didn't like those feelings, but she had to work through them, and we got to see that discomfort, but also like the acceptance, like, yes, like I've work to do.
Yeah, and like willingness to put in work. Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get that. And not just, and like, not to skip ahead, but like not just at the library, but like in every way that she's lacking, she's like, I'm not gonna be caught unaware ever again.
Yes, and when we get to episode 44, which we will in this recap, we can talk a little more about that conversation with a certain person that touches on a lot of the things we learned throughout
And
this
even
course.
when you were training too, like there was a bar set for you, like do this first and then move on. And you weren't like, how dare you? You're like, you know what? No, you're right. I need to hit that first, and I absolutely shouldn't be trying to jump ahead. It's just the character development for you was just amazing.
It's funny because I've had this, I don't know if I've had this conversation with you, Arthur, but I've had this conversation with Leah a couple of times where I'm like, I really, really wanted to spend more time in more Bale. And I don't want to say disappointed, but I was bummed that we moved on so quickly because I wanted to like find out more about everything there. We were there very briefly. So I was like, okay. And so like coming in, to Annenfell, it was sort of like, all right, we're here. It's probably going to be more of the same. We'll get some information and move on. And then we like found a home and like not just a place to stay, but like a home here and acceptance from these people and like willingness to train us. Like we had not experienced any of that ever. Like we've had to always claw and you know whatever to get to where we were at. So like this was like a really cool change of pace. And so like those little like flirt with the tailor and then get stabbed in the chest was like minor in comparison to the overall goodness that we received. We were about to be so fucked.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. I don't know if we've talked about this. I know I've talked to you about this because we had the scripting done for with Gideon.
Mm-hmm.
Gideon kicked him out of the glassworks because Shar was getting ready to just like have like a mediocre life. He was going to settle down. And the mediocre life in Annenfell is so different than what it would have been back at Saltspire. Because in Saltspire, it would have been wallowing in self-pity. But in Annenfell, it would have been like, no, I have the ability to improve myself and everybody else around me here.
Yeah.
It's just amazing there's such that dichotomy just from experiencing the world.
Okay, we have to be off the rails a little more because there is something I want to talk to you about, but there's like no time to address this in other moments. And I'm thinking about it now. Talking about a mediocre life and exceeding, you know, what aspirations you had for yourself before this campaign started, along the same lines as talking about Zem's development, Shar's development in this moment, because like he has been reliant on that connection with his god, with Amara, for so long, and like he's found so much comfort in that, and that's gotten him through a lot of the bad stuff he's done. And to see him cut off from that, and to see him having to struggle to sort of identify who he is without that connection has been so fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's horrifying.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason that I almost did take a level in cleric, but I'm like, that wouldn't make any sense at the end of that.
Well, and how cool is it too? And like, again, this is like the 400th time today I've said this, but like that semi, like sort of full circle moment of like the second that you can't have her, like have that contact with her, you go back to Glassworks.
Mm-hmm.
Like whether that was intentional or not, like that's just so cool because even though it was different, you weren't like, I'm just going to settle into this. It was, I'm going to get better and I have things that I want to improve. And like, you have changed, but even still, it was like, okay, back to this manual labor, back to this like glassworks.
Yeah, it's the intent behind the actions as opposed to just doing it. Shar is kind of the person that I would want to be if I was younger, too. Just somebody who's willing to do and sift through the shit without really being sad about it or pissed off at the world.
Yeah.
So, yeah, when you guys say Shar is too good, I'm like, yeah, but that's kind of the point. And he will absolutely turn the murder if Zem gets hurt. 100%.
Oh, really? I'm not shocked. We're about to talk about that.
Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to full stop your skipping past this episode.
No, I do think it's funny that I was like, we're going to skip past this one, and then we got real into it.
Yeah.
Episode 38, Light Treason. So Zem and Shar attended... Such a good name. Anyway.
Listen, hold on.
Okay.
Viewers. Listeners.
People of the world.
If you're not paying attention to the names, you should be.
You should be. They're really good most of the time.
And there have been so many moments where I've been like at home and either thinking about something or re-listening to an episode or working through art or documenting in some capacity where I've been like, you son of a bitch. And I've sent Leah that message exactly like, oh.
Also, I figured it out.
Yeah.
But you guys went to dinner with Rena, Istin, Turiel, and Reg. Reg is back in this episode.
In the flesh.
And you started to plan what you were going to do about Nexus having this orb. Reg also successfully negotiated Rafe's entry into Annenfell. And you left with this new group of compatriots at your disposal, feeling pretty good. But on the way back to your hotel, you passed the dry dock and the ship. And on the deck of the ship, you saw the white-cloaked man from all those nights ago at Ascension Point. How shocked were you? What went through your minds in that moment?
Before or after the fireball?
I think the fireball happened in the next episode. So,
I was not shocked. I mean, in that, like, I wasn't expecting it right then, but like I was expecting to see a reemergence, I guess.
Yeah.
Because I think the poetic part was that you were the one that rolled really high to see it, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because we ended that episode with me going, you motherfucker!
We did. Yep. That was the episode.
Did I beep it at the end? I forget.
I don't remember.
Yeah, because isn't that the one where it just ends with like, beep?
You know what?
When the episode goes off? I'm pretty sure.
Sometimes I'm like, haha, clever editing. And then other times...
Listen, your editing is always clever. It cracks me up.
There's sometimes I'm like, what the fuck was I doing? Because I listen to every episode on Tuesday when it drops, and I'm like, oh.
I can tell when you're exhausted and editing. Like there's a couple of moments where I'm like, oh, he was real tired. And it's not bad. It's just like I can just tell like there's that edge.
Well, you get used to like where I have been and then where I am, and you're like, yeah, I get it.
Like I said, it's not that it's bad. It's just I don't know. It gets like a little extra goofy or something. I don't know.
Video game sound effects are my jam.
And they're hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so speaking of clever episode titles, I need to point this one out because I think Jen was the one that actually came with the episode title. So back in episode 14,
Jesus Christ,
there was an episode titled Betrayals Begin with Trust. And in that episode, we revealed that Dalius had betrayed Zem during one of her pendulum readings. She had no context for the information, just that piece. So the episode title was based on it. And so when I was naming episode 39, I sent a message to Jen and Arthur and I said, look, like I need a title that plays on this and I'm struggling. And Jen was like, immediately, boom, got you. Episode 39, Trust Ends with Betrayal. So clever. So clever.
I think that's one of the things that I love about both of you being able to like have that side of it. Because ironically, I'm the one that writes poetry, but I'm like, I got nothing for fucking titles.
Titles are hard.
I'm real good at names. I'm terrible at names. Listen.
Holy shit, we still have to pick a name for the group.
I know.
No, don't say it. Jen's going to be hyper-focused again.
No, I'm going to be hyper-focused.
Listen, so one of our Patreons came up with a name that is acceptable. It's acceptable. Listen to me, acceptable. But like, we haven't. But I don't know. Like, it makes perfect sense. Anyway, what I'm trying to say here is that if you provide me with a name, I'm terrible at remembering that name. But if you say, I need a name for this and this is what it should feel like, I can give it to you immediately. Whatever. But like...
That's what she said. Arthur just threw something at me.
Well, I tried to do that, but and it fell out of my hand.
But I'm being abused.
Ow!
Did you just poke your G4?
It was a G4.
I'm so sorry. We're off the rails.
Hold on.
I did that when we played Shumanji. You're like, stop fucking stabbing yourself.
I switched out my dice. So Arthur switches out his die for every core. I decided I was going to do it every 50 episodes. One of this dice set was very, very kindly gifted to me from
Our number one
our
patron,
our
our
number
number
one
one fan.
Yeah. Do we name them or
Yeah.
just
No, yeah, we have to.
okay?
That's part of the deal.
Okay. So Kay sent us these dice and like they're so cool and I was saving them and I'm using it now and I keep setting my freaking hand on it and stabbing myself on the sharpest D4 in existence. Might as well be made with razors. Anyway, my point was I can come up with the name immediately, but I'm also going to forget that as well. So someone document it or I'm screwed.
Back on topic.
Which
The
topic?
For now.
episode. 39. Trust ends with betrayal. Zem screamed at the white cloaked figure, who retaliated with a fireball. And there's like a big fight. Boom, boom, boom's going off on
And
the deck
I'm
of the
the
ship.
emotional one.
And then all of a sudden, Shar rips this guy's hood off, revealing Zem's former teacher, friend, and father figure, Dalius Ashgard. He pleaded with Zamira to trust him, go with him, to give him a chance to explain. Zem replied that she couldn't trust him, wouldn't go anywhere with him. He escaped via a few dimension door spells.
Motherfucker.
And after all was said and done, Zem and Reg returned to the inn while Shar ran back to Arenas to let her know what happened, deciding to stay there as a safety precaution. So, I mean, the main thing to talk about here is like the elephant in the room, right? The Dalius reveal. We talked a little bit about like our feelings on that.
I remember sitting in my kitchen over Chinese food and you said, yeah, Jen thinks it's Dalius. And I'm like, really? Still? And then you came down here and did that shit to me?
I'm not a good person, guys.
You ruined Kung Pao chicken for me.
Okay, so listen.
Well, don't try to justify your evil actions. It's fine. Just continue.
Here's the deal, right? It had to be Dalius. It always had to be Dalius. I talked about that a little bit. It was either in the public AMA or the Patreon AMA.
I think it was
from
the
last month.
Patreon.
I can't remember. But regardless, it had to be Dalius. I left enough time to give people some doubt and to also sow some seeds of doubt on my own. But I want to talk about Zem and Shar's feelings in that moment. Because we've talked about our personal feelings, but not the characters' feelings. What did Zem feel in that moment, seeing Dalius stand there? I mean, I'm sure she had her suspicions, but I'm curious.
So Zamira's not good at like actually taking stock of how she feels and sifting through that and working through those things. The second it gets real, the second it gets big, there is like a deep, dark hole that she buries that shit in.
Yeah.
Any kind of big anything. So in that moment, it was like, it's almost like that pit opened up and you know that feeling. You know when something terrible is like right on the precipice and you just feel this like gaping hole. That's essentially how she was feeling in that moment. But she pushed the feeling in and then stepped away because like she's not ready. And I think it's because she has to reflect on that, she has to reflect on herself.
Yeah.
Which she won't do.
Yeah.
Anytime soon.
Shar, how did you feel in them? Because you got a little murdery.
Well, it was Shar realized that it was Dalius.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he dimension doored and you said you're passive, you can see it pop over behind a warehouse. I'm like, no, he's going to run after him.
Mm-hmm.
No, he hurt Zem. Like that's game on. We're good. I mean, we even had like it was one of my favorite moments was essentially the Captain America Black Panther running scene from Infinity War with Reg and Shar going up to the ship to start that.
Yeah, it was really
And then
good.
Reg got fucking stunned for
He did.
6
He was
rounds.
held the whole
The
fight.
whole time. Mm-hmm.
He was so pissed
He
about
was
that.
so mad. That's what happens when you're a not very wise rogue, though.
But that's the thing is Shar like he pulled out all the stops because he realized it was Dalius.
Yeah.
And if they had him on the ropes to the point where he was dimension dooring away, they might never get that chance again.
Yeah. I want to talk about this moment too, because there was a split second there where you said you were chasing him. And I had to reflect on who Dalius was a person very quickly in that moment, right? Because there were two options, right? Delius continues to run, or Delius waits and lets Shar catch up and finishes the job, because Shar was pretty hurt in that moment because he had been hit with a cone of cold. And
a
so
fireball.
and a fireball.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking really hard about this. I was like, is Delius going to run, or would Delius send a message? And I ultimately obviously decided on he's running, because that fits with who he is more, right? He's not a murderer, which we see later in a big way. He's not great at accepting like huge consequences, but he's not afraid to do bad stuff to get what he wants.
Right. But like if he's self-serving to the point of not being a murderer, because it wouldn't have done anything for him. It's almost worse because he's so cold.
Yeah.
He gives no fucks about anyone but himself and like the power that he can attain.
I do think he cares for Zem a little bit, though. But the problem is he cares for himself way more.
Well, he thinks that he cares for Zamira.
That's a better way to put it. Yes, he thinks he cares for Zamira. In his mind, he cares this is a little probably more than people actually need to know, but in Delius's mind, he cares for Zamira in the way that he would care for a daughter. And that is terrifying to think about, because that is not how people should treat other people.
Like other people, period, but especially those that they think that they love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so him deciding not to kill Shar in that moment, it was probably less like, I don't want to kill somebody for the sake of killing people. It was more like, if I do this, I'm never going to get Zamira to trust me and go along with this plan I have. So it wouldn't actually benefit me to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not because he actually has like a qualm about doing it.
And I think if this had happened when they were not in Annenfell, Shar also would probably not have gone after him.
Yeah.
Because this is not only just a fracture of Zem's world, this was a fracture of the peace in general.
It was.
Like, this was a giant sledgehammer to the, oh yeah, everything's still bad.
Yeah, because that's the one thing about being in Annenfell, and even though like you were separated from your god and we couldn't really get like messages in and out, like all that kind of stuff, it was a protective bubble for us as well. Like even being cut off. So
Yeah, it was a
100%.
reprieve.
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't have your nightmares, and Shar, though he was lonely without Amara, I mean, he knew she was still there,
Mm-hmm.
because multiple times you had even mentioned it through, like, you felt the warmth of the amulet. But I mean, that was just rough.
Yeah. Core 3, the reprieve.
Yeah. It was a little
We
bit
should
of
start
that.
naming the cores.
The deep
Oh,
breath.
we should. The deep breath. We should name the cores. It's a good idea. All right, episode 40, Truth and Trust. Shar, in this episode, receives a gift from Rena, which is an insignia pin tied to the royal family of Annenfell that helps to increase his constitution and links him to the city and its people. He also spoke with Rhys and decided to help her and did some work at the Glass Forge. Zem did some strength training with the town guards, received a trunk of new clothing from Rena, and headed off to the Ellen Istanome to train with Erevan. So back in the last Cour, Zem met with the goddess Nox, who bestowed a boon on her, trying to win her over to her side. And that boon ended up being the magic initiate feat. And after that, Arthur, jokingly, asked when he was going to get something cool. And I said I had something in mind, but it was going to take a hot minute. And that was whenever I kind of knew that I wanted to give Shar something that was tied to the elves, because it just sort of naturally came around that Rena and Shar had this connection, right? They vibed really well together. I'm not talking romantically. I'm talking just like in general, they seem to have like an understanding. But Arthur, how was the payoff? Was it everything you dreamed?
Was that was the episode where we actually did that remote, right?
Yes, episode 40 was
I remember
remote.
muting my mic, and you found it later. I just like, yes!
Yeah. Such a fun moment. Such a good time.
That was one of those, like, it was so clipped we couldn't even kind of keep it, and I knew that was going to be the case. But I think that there was also a moment of like, it's so weird because when I DM and even before, we play in very high magic systems.
Mm-hmm.
And comparatively, this is a very low magic system.
It is.
Magic items are still very rare. I think that was also another boon of being in Annenfell, is everything is fucking magic.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh, this is normal. Okay. Is there like magic items? You're like, I have an idea.
Yes.
You'll be fine because you got magic initiate, which was needed and necessary because sorcerers don't have enough fucking spells.
It's true.
Bugs the
It's true.
shit out of me. So I'm happy for you. That's not what I.
I'm very happy for you, but also.
So because it was necessary because there was going to be a point where we don't have what spells we need, especially with me taking potentially another level of monk after and not getting that upper echelon of full caster. It's going to be rough. So I was happy with that. But then the fact that it ties me to Annenfell also felt very. I think I even tried to give it back.
You did. You did at one point. You were like, I can't accept this.
Like this is not okay. Like is it honoring as this is? I don't fucking deserve this. I'm just some schmuck from Saltzpyre.
Yeah.
But it was a little bit of a. I think that's also another part that pushed him with Reese as well. It's just like let's actually do some good.
Yeah.
Here.
Hell yeah. It was good. Episode 41, The Order of the White Dove. Both Zem and Shar are transported into a game of Shrumanji, available for listening over on Game Master Monday. It was so good.
So good.
Check it out. There's going to be a link in the description as well, so you can head right over to their website to hear it. When you woke up from that, you spent some time with Reg, had a nice dinner, went about your business, and Zem spent the night in Shar's room because a bad reading from her pendulum had her spooked.
In Shar's room?
Yeah. Remember you watched him make holy water and you fell asleep.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then you made a joke about being stabbed on the bed.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right.
But
You're like, this room is cursed. I'm sorry, thank you.
the main thing I want to talk about here from this episode, because we haven't talked about it yet on a recording, is, oh my God, how good was Shrumanji?
Oh my God.
It was so good.
It was so much, like, when we were done, like, playing and / recording, my face hurt from laughing and smiling the whole time for, like, hours straight. Yeah, it was really good.
I mean, I had a lot of fun. The technical aspect really pissed me off because you guys couldn't hear me over Zoom.
Yeah.
But my mic was so loud in the recordings that I ended up having to send. I had to like declip a lot of it. I was not happy with that. I don't know. I have a new interface. We're gonna fix it. But I mean, it was some of the most fun I've had playing a one shot of a game since like early on when we did our Christmas one shots.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we have to do that again this year.
Like making each other's characters is just absolutely fascinating.
100%.
But being able to flex as not Shar but Shar, absolutely hilarious.
It was so much fun, and
the murderous shrew that Shar became, hilarious.
Yes, and I mean Grant is brilliant. I mean just the way he puts games together, it was so funny. And nobody runs a one shot like Grant. I mean, that's what they do over there, right? They run a different game, different different system, different cast every episode. Like that is mind boggling to me. And to be able to put out such quality episodes is so good. It's so good. Getting to play Karina was so much fun. And, there's a little lore there. Why would she have shown up like that? I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll have to find out later.
I genuinely thought you were going to pull Karina to Annenfell from that episode, just in general.
That pops up in my brain a lot.
A lot?
Yeah. It is interesting that you guys have this connection with her. I was actually considering just playing Dell. That was what I was going to do, was have Dell come in with this book, give it to you, you open it, same thing, beat Dell. But then there's just like this little voice in the back of my head that was like, or you could drop some interesting information just by having her show up. So,
And
oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. I was just gonna say, like, I really kind of love the fact that like it's now canon in our world that there are subplots within the walls. Like that is so cool to me that like we're going to be traveling again eventually and like just watch a little shrew prance along the trail and be like, "Aw."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
It was also First of all, we will never burn a house down ever.
Well,
Well, there's maybe
Zen
one,
might.
I
maybe two.
can't make that promise.
Specifically with a white dove. I will protect that hotel.
Yeah.
But I had a thought and it was
Who's gone now?
gone.
Sorry.
No, it wasn't your fault. It was just like I had it and I'm like, all right. It's like when a computer like condenses all the information, gets ready to like exposit.
Execute.
It condensed it and then it just deleted it. Zip file gone.
All right. Well, if you think of it, we can come back to it. But I'm going to jump to the next episode, which was cleverly named episode 42, Hindsight. Because it
doesn't make sense unless you watch the next episode.
Well, I mean, the kicker for why this episode title makes so much sense doesn't come until episode 46. So a month later, but we had already recorded that far ahead, so I knew, and it was so good. Char went to see Rena before Reese's trial, begged her to show Reese mercy. Rena hesitantly agreed.
That was 100% my fault too.
Fucking Char.
I meant to do it the night before, and then I'm like, oh, right, I didn't do that.
Forgot.
And it was like hyper-correcting, like, fuck.
It was really fun though because I got to play pissed off Rena. So that was good. You also made a cool vase at the glass forge, got some much needed supplies to create more holy water, and Zem visited Istin and tried to befriend him a little bit. And
Hand gestures. Lots of hand gestures.
lots of hand gestures.
Stupid, like, spell child that answered the door.
Yeah.
Infuriates me.
Oh, it's so good. Also, this is the episode where you gave Char his new and improved katana that you had enchanted by one of the mages at the Ellen Istinome. So 2 questions here, one for each of you. The first one, which is probably the easier question to answer. Char, in the moment where Zem gave you this katana that she had carved into this symbol that she created out of your names, and she, had it enchanted to make it more sturdier, whatever.
Won't break from a goddamn fire elemental again.
Yeah. So in that moment, like, how was Char feeling?
Oh, he was stunned, just in general. I think it's hard. It's hard sometimes because when we're rushing through certain episodes and certain scenes, you don't get to have like that moment of just like understanding and figuring out what's going on. But with Char in general, I think he was just stunned because the first katana meant so much to him
Yes.
in general because of the 2 people that gave it to him, which was Xander and Ulrich.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was gifted to him from Ulrich via Xander before he was kicked out of the monastery.
Mm-hmm.
And now one of those people is gone and the other one is just in a different world. So having something that is, because that was his lifeline up until when it snapped. And then now this is just a new lifeline for him. And that was when the world immediately being shattered with Dahlia showing up. And then that happened. I'm like, okay, there's still hope for going forward with him.
Zem, I have to tell you that when you decided to go see Istin, I didn't foresee that coming. And knowing what I knew about Istin, I was like, well, I have to leave some hints in this moment, but I can't be too heavy-handed about it because I need the reveal to still wait. I want to know how you felt in the moment, what your initial perceptions were of Istin when you got to his place and saw all the amazing, wonderful things he was working on. Also kind of the creepy vibes he gave.
You're talking to the wrong person.
It's true. That's the good thing, though, is like I can make things creepy and Jen/Zem is never going to be off-put by them.
100%. There was a time in which I thought that I was a smart person. And then I realized playing at your table.
You are smart. Let's just backtrack for a moment.
So here's
How
the
dare
thing,
you
like,
talk about my friend like that? I would physically invite you.
So the thing is, though, like, I'm a very detail-oriented person to my detriment. Like, I get into the details that are so nuanced that they don't matter, and I missed the big picture. So like in those moments, I really looked at him as like the nutty professor, like Merlin from the old animated cartoon, where he was just like a little off his rocker from all of the magic that he's been doing his whole life. So like I genuinely saw nothing coming in any capacity.
Well, I think that works out. This is something that works out for me really well a lot of the time because I am a big picture person, right?
I love
And
art, love just mosaics.
yeah, both of you are more detail oriented. So it's really easy for me to distract you
It
with,
it
with
is because
misdirection.
and I think the worst part about this partnership is the fact that like Arthur's detail oriented when it comes to words and
Mhm.
lore and that sort of thing. I'm detail oriented when it comes to the color of the thing that you've chosen. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
the shape of the thing. Is it sharp? Like I want to like the tactile that.
Yeah.
And then we don't
Mm-mm.
communicate
Nope.
with each other.
And we are never on the same wavelength. We are always opposite. We do not cross. And I think the irony is that, and this is probably a benefit of me going through and actually editing the episodes after, like you've taken that like first run through and like cutting out what you don't want, and then I edit them. I knew going into that conversation where everybody lied.
Mhm.
And now, but if it was about somebody that was part of my character, I probably would have fucking missed it.
Yeah.
That was just because I saw that happening, and also I got like different vibes than what you got from him from the start.
Yeah. I was just like, oh, it's cute. Like this is what happens when I can't wait to be that when I get older.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that is it's such an interesting thread that has been woven throughout the entire story of this campaign, though, is Zem finding these people who are, mages of some sort, a little power hungry, a little creepy, and Shar being like, these people don't give out good vibes, and Zem being like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
This is how life is. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's been fun.
Which is ironic because Shar sees the world like fucking rose colored,
Yeah.
and Zem should be all like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" But in this circumstance in this city, like not the case at all.
Yeah.
And it's weird too that I would be so suspicious of everybody, and yet I'm just
Yeah.
maybe I'm so suspicious that I expect this, and so when people give that to me, I'm like, yeah.
You know what it was? It was the dailiest thing that I'm just like, okay, yep, that's this, and this. I understand it now because first of all, there was a book that was recommended to me. It was a political book. It's not important, but I saw all those things kind of line up, and I'm like, it has to be this, or I'm a fucking moron and I've missed something else, which always happens. But this time it worked out.
Well, speaking of Dalius, we're about to get into two of my favorite episodes that we have recorded so far, which is episode 43, We Need to Talk. Zem and Shar had dinner at Rena's. You begin to make plans for what your next move is, getting this orb back. The vibe is a little tense, because different people have different ideas of what needs to do. And the idea of moving on from Annenfell is a little scary and having to uproot everything. But when you return to the inn and Zem goes into her room, she's ambushed by Dalius, who casts Hold Person on her, creates a telepathic bond. And like, what a cliffhanger. But I want to hear your reactions to this moment because there's something that I think, we felt that we were at the end of the episode. You both were sort of like a little excited. Zem had an idea of like what she was going to do. She's going to go to Reg's room. And I said in the moment, something was basically like, what are the last things you say to each other? And neither of you like really picked up on how I worded
You know
that.
why I did that way though was
Yeah.
because I had mentioned during the course of that day that I wanted to ask the pendulum questions.
Yes.
And the way that you threw that out there, I'm like, oh, are you sure you don't want to do the pendulum tonight? I'm like, no, Char's not going to mention it. Zem's clearly like on a cloud 9 situation. I'm
I
going to
know.
let it go.
But it was so good because you were distracted by this pendulum idea. Zem's distracted by this idea of like, I'm totally going to Reg's room. And I literally just said, what are the last things you say to each other? And it was just like, oh, good night. And I'm like, all right.
Well, and I love that, and I love that in those moments that was like just more evidence of how young we are.
Yes.
Like
Yes, it felt so good.
how immature, like, I mean, so there's a lot of things that we've had to be mature about, and we've handled as best as we can, but we
No.
yeah, like it was like, but we are still kids almost, you know? So
Yes.
like, yeah, no, that was I liked I liked that we were like, nah, man.
It was so good because it was like the least meta moment, right? Because normally as a dungeon master, you have to be really careful how you word things because you kind of tip your players off to stuff, and then they're like, "Whoa, now I'm all of a sudden like I don't want to open the door because you just said it that way,
Do you
right?"
check the handle? I mean, not now.
Yeah, exactly. How close are you standing to that door? No, I'm 10 feet away now. What are you talking about, right? So in that moment, to have you guys, I mean, I couldn't help myself. I had to say it that way because I was like so excited. And to have you guys just keep rolling with what you were doing, it was so good. It was so good. Which brings us into episode 44. Where would you go? Delius pulled out all the stops in this episode, trying to find any way that he could to manipulate Zamira. He tried appealing to their previous close relationship. He tried enticing her with power, plying her with secrets, and ultimately resorted to threatening her. Shar wasn't in this episode much.
Yeah, because that one was going to work.
Yeah. But he did have a good idea to break the ice with Alias by getting a little info on her and sending a bottle of wine to her room. So, Zem, I want to know where your head was during this talk with Delius because he was all over the place.
Yeah, desperation and despair.
Mm-hmm.
Panic. It was I will, if I have to, I will leave them to keep them safe, but I'm going to try everything that I can to not leave them if I can like figure out a way to get him to leave. Which I think becomes clear again later on. Her willingness to be like, I'm dangerous to you at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I think that she's never going to trust him, but he is also not hitting her with the right things. And I don't want to tell you what that is.
I also think that that's the failings of someone who is self-focused.
Yeah.
Wholly, like it worked
Mhm.
100% because if he had been any kind of empathetic, he could have figured out.
Yes.
But he's not a manipulator. Because if it had been like Genevieve in that situation, very different.
Right. And I think, he doesn't really get her motivations. She has tendencies and she has things that she wants, but ultimately he's not picking up on the thing that will get her to do what he wants. Thank God.
If he had come like and approached you at the beginning of this arc, like right as the entrance to Annenfeld, do you think Zem would have gone with him at that point before all of the story and all of the people we've met?
You mean when we were at
If like that first night when we were in the hotel, inn, whatever.
Oh, you mean once we were in Annenfeld?
Yeah, that first night. If he had been like, look, this is the situation, this is what I can offer you, like, do you think Zem would have gone with him? No.
If he had done that at the very beginning of the campaign, this would be a very different campaign. Because she wouldn't have had any reason to not trust him. The second that he didn't tell her everything, he pretty much lost her at that moment.
Well, I saw when he mentioned your mother, I'm just like, nope, game's off. You can stop talking now. We're over.
Yeah, I mean, she's never going to trust him ever again. That being said, she would make sacrifices and go along with what he wants if he presses the right buttons the right way.
Well, I think the thing with Delius is that he is so self-centered that he's not really able to understand Zamira's motivations because he just assumes hers are the same as his. And he made that very clear in this conversation when he was saying, like, we can be the most powerful mages on Vela. And you were like, what would you even do with that? And then he was confused, like, but like, why wouldn't you? I thought we wanted this. I thought this was our goal, right? So I don't know. I thought that was fun.
That whole conversation, first of all, I could let you guys RP the entire day and I'd be just sitting here with like M&Ms and popcorn being like, this is amazing. I love this. I could do this all day.
It was such a fun conversation.
Also, the fact that it was like telepathic. Goddamn loved that shit. My engineering brain was going crazy the entire time. I'm like, oh, I can do that. I can do that. Yes.
I was so mad though, right? Because I wanted Zem to succeed on her saving throw first, or to have a portent that she could use, because I was about to portent her ass right back because Dahlia is a divination wizard. And it was going to be so much fun. And I didn't get to do it.
I used them all.
You did use them all.
Well, the good ones.
No, I think she had 2 bad ones that day. You had like a 5 and an 11 or something.
He just poked himself in the eye with his glasses.
We can move on.
I was like, what happened?
I'm sorry.
But okay, Shar, the thing I want to talk to you about here though was
okay.
This was a clever move by Shar, a very interesting finesse move to try to get an in with Alias. By going down, trying to get some information, sending this bottle of wine, these things. What was Shar's plan in that moment? Was it just like, this person is clearly more than what she seems, I want to know more about her? Or did you have another ulterior motive?
Shar was trying to be Zem. Like, he was trying to approach this situation like Zem would, because he saw how well up to that point, like, things had so well accidentally fallen into her lap. He's just like, I need to do something like Zem would. And if that had worked out and he had gone in and talked to her about that, that situation would have been very, very different, because Shar's approach does not line up with how that's like, that did not, the approach did not line up with what would have happened.
Yeah.
But like, and I've said it before, I would be excruciatingly dangerous as a charisma character.
It was just a really fun, interesting moment.
But my favorite was just the absolute separation of Shar versus Arthur, which is like, no, he wants you to bribe him. I'm like, you're right. Fuck.
That was hilarious.
That was really funny.
Really good moment.
I want to know where Shar learned those moves specifically, though. That's my follow-up question.
Which moves?
Like all of the like wine and dine, like here you go.
Well, it's because when we went to the tailor and like he saw how much power money has for so many people, it's just like, all right, like if it's a wine, like somebody who lives in Annenfell, maybe, and they're supposedly returning, like let's use that as an approach. And it would have been for him, it would have been a conversation over tea, but as wine, as opposed to being like, let's get drunk. Like that
is so funny, because I know that Zamira viewed that as like, not what it was, not the fine things and the money side, but the wine and dine side, like the like where are you going with this, buddy side of
he didn't
things.
know. That was the funny part.
I know I love that,
because that's the thing, when he approached it, it was, I'm gonna be Zem. Fuck.
Yeah, because I don't think Samira's worked a goddamn day in her life, and she's got a lot of things, a lot of pretty things.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so from there we jump to episode 45, Problems Children Come in Threes. We finally made it to Rena's party. Rafe shows up, Del and Zuvi are there. Reg is looking dashing as ever. What I want to focus on in this episode, in this moment, before we get into the chaos of what comes after, you both asked for this. You were like, we want to have a party. And I was like, do you really want to have a party? And you were like, we want to have a party. And then you were like, we want to have a masquerade party. And I was like, do you really want to have a masquerade party?
Yeah.
Here's the problem. I was on an Assassin's Creed kick at the time, and they had the Venetian ball, like with all like the masquerades and all the through the scene. I'm like, that would be fucking awesome if we had that. And then you had mentioned it first, and I'm like, I'm glad we're on the same wavelength
We
for the
are,
first time ever.
I really, 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 really wanted that moment with Rafe so badly.
I wanted Char to be uncomfortable in that whole situation. That's why I kind of pushed for it, which is very funny.
But like you had to know that you loaded the gun. You put it in my hand and you pointed my hand at a couple really important NPCs.
You
First of all, no, you still fired. Second of all,
yeah, guns don't kill people, people kill people. Okay, but like it's going to be bad anyway.
It is.
So like we might as well have had this grand, beautiful, dramatic, kind of sexy, like
it was very sexy.
Yeah, like this whole moment, it makes the bad go down smoother. Easier.
calm down, Mary Poppins.
More
like,
painful.
Nothing's ever going to top Shawshank. Never, ever, ever.
No, nothing.
No, I might one day, but it's going to be a while.
I have to say that
And you missed it. You missed it.
In the moment, I know. It was like the playback. Anyway.
But I think that... So, getting you out of Annenfell, I had a lot of different ways that I was considering going about it. But from the moment you started talking about the party, I was like, this is going to be the turning point of this campaign in a big way. And it ended up being exactly that in episode 46, which doesn't have a name yet. Everybody get off my back.
It's been a rough week, guys, okay? Leave me alone.
Yeah.
The episode's title was I Wanted to Be One of You.
Rena ends up being abducted in the middle of her own party by some monks in Iston who seem to be plotting together, obviously. Rafe and Zem together managed to beat Varys, one of the keepers from the garden. We sadly end up losing Reg. Del and Zuvi are unaccounted for. We also hear sirens in the distance and the acknowledgement that the king is dead. Char and Zem have created this uneasy alliance with Alias in this episode. And they find out that she works for Adria. This episode was a tough ride. I know we were all kind of like crying, upset a little bit. Definitely after, maybe even a little during. Losing Reg in particular was a pretty tough blow for all of us. Saying goodbye to Del and Zuvi, two more of my NPCs that I love absolutely much, are Del being our TBK character that is probably our most well-known. I'm still not really over it. But like, let's talk about these deaths. How are Zem and Char handling it, or are they not handling it at all?
So this is going to be one more thing that Zem puts in that giant pit and like locks it up. I am not, like, I'm struggling because there is a point in that fight where Zem very clearly made a choice. And then the result of that choice is that the other one died almost immediately. And like, that sucks. Like, that's really hard. So like, that is like, if I feel that strongly about this, I know that that's going to take time, which, I think it's the next episode. So like, I'll wait to get into that. But like, her reactions after the fact are like pretty crazy. And I am a little bit afraid with this brand new, like, budding feelings that she's having with Rafe. Like, I feel like this could be uncomfortable for that relationship. But time will tell. We will see. As far as Reg goes, like, Reg has been a protector, an ass, but a protector from day one. Like, the first time we met him was at the Queen's Rest, and I stood up and got in his way on purpose, and he caught me, and he was all damsel in distress. I mean, like, I was playing it up, but damsel in distress, like, whatever, and it never changed the whole time. Even when I feel like Reg might have wanted it to have changed and be different, like the flirtiness that was his armor aside, Every time we really needed something, he was there. So like that's gone. We don't have that
Yeah, that
anymore.
lifeline is just cut.
Gone. Yeah.
I mean, much like you making a choice between Rafe and Reg too, immediately before Char also needed to make that choice: was do I save Zem or Reg? Because there was that option of if he doesn't get you out of here as well, I mean, everybody dies. Because I think of everybody there, Char was the most scared of the two keepers.
Yeah, and I
Because
mean, that
he
makes
has
sense.
because he has seen the gauntlet in action. He knows how fucking terrifying these people are. And the problem also was that because we were in masks, he didn't know which ones they were, which I wanted, but that is 100% part of his decision making in general. With Rafe, if Char was a strategist, he would have picked Rafe over him anyway. And this is a problem that I am now concerned with: is the power and useful of magic items and who has what where. But losing everybody in one go, I mean, that's just devastating.
Yeah.
And it made the next couple episodes hurt all the worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're not going to get into 48 today, but woof. I, for me, like going into this, I knew. So to give a little background, and I didn't specifically make this as obvious or well known in the moment because I wanted the listeners, as well as the two of you, to be confused about what's happening, to be approaching this fight from a point of utter confusion, right? Because that is the vibe here, right? This thing that was happening in this courtyard, it wasn't a monster. It was a spell effect. This was you have to be able to survive for a minute in this area, and things are just going to keep getting worse. And so I knew, based on what was happening in this encounter, that your only options were going to be try to survive, which would probably not have gone well, or escape. And if you escape, you're going to have to make some tough decisions. But I think in the moment when I knew that Reg was going to die, that was the first time in this campaign as the DM where I went, oh, I hate it. Oh, I hate it so much. This isn't what I wanted. And then when Rafe stayed behind to try to get Reg back out, I was like, all right, I'm just going to roll Reg's death saves. Just see what happened. Like, could he have survived? And I rolled like a 5, 7, and a 1. That was it.
That nail in
And
the
I was
coffin.
like, this is it. The dice have willed it. You know, I can't save him. There's no DM fiat here. He's dead. And that wrecked me because Reg, I feel like as a person in this campaign has been so interesting, especially the two conversations that he had with the two of you about like your emotional states. That night that he stayed with Zamira and was like, you know, you are afraid of your own feelings. Like, if anything gets real, you run. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And just like called her out for it right there. And then again, like talking to Char later and being like, you are emotionally constipated. And I get why you're scared because something bad happened to you in your past. But that doesn't mean that you can't have a future. Right. Like these two conversations were so good.
And that was the irony: was Char was actually starting to work past it.
Yes.
And then it happened again.
Yes. Char and Reg dancing during that whole thing, I was like, this is so good. And then immediately killing Reg, I was like, oh
no.
God, I'm a monster.
I think the dance was my favorite part because we talked all the way back in 32.
I don't know, it was a long time ago.
That you couldn't figure out if Reg was going to go over to somebody's room, and I messaged you on the side. I'm like, if he goes to Char's room, he's not going to turn him away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you kind of flipped out, like you're like,
I know. Well, I get very excited when I get to flirt with my friends. Leave me alone.
but that's the thing. I also don't want to interrupt Zem and or Jen having their moment too, because first of all, romance is not my bag at all. Like even kind of.
So like I also had this conversation and I said that Zem was not emotionally bound. And so like if it was clear that there was an emotional bond forming, that she would step back. But otherwise, how do I put this? didn't really care about sharing.
Well, and this, so okay, we can get into this because like I had conversations with other people who were just like outside observers who listen to the podcast, and I said to them like, Reg is definitely finessing a connection with both of these PCs right now, and it's so good. And like and there were multiple people who were like, yes, the polycule, and I was like
Yeah. So like that's the thing though, is like there was like I need to make this, because I thought I did, incredibly clear that like Shar and Zem are brother and sister. Like maybe not by blood. It is never going to happen. So like for me, I know that I kept having Zamira like put Reg in the middle on purpose. Like he would sit between us. I would hold one arm while Shar was on the other side, like that kind of thing, because like Zem is not held up by these things. Like she doesn't care about that. She doesn't care what it looks like to other people. She just knows that like a relationship in that way with Shar doesn't feel right because of the actual relationship that they have. So she just doesn't care if they share, just not at the same time. So like like we'll have to have split custody.
no, we don't, because he's dead now. I killed him. It was getting too messy. He had to die.
I never thought I'd hear that phrasing of that thing.
All right, so moving on from the murders.
Why? But wait, hold on.
Okay.
I was really bummed. I feel like I shut it out like as Jen with Del.
Oh, you're right. We should talk about that before we move on. So I feel like this is the only problem with having a podcast versus a streamed game, is that through the words that were said, it can come across that like maybe you guys didn't care and just let Del go.
Yeah.
But like if people could see your facial expressions in all of these moments, they would know obviously that you guys didn't want to leave Del there.
Fuck no.
You didn't want to leave Reg there, right? But you didn't have a choice, right?
I mean, I think it's also apparent, like, Shar literally, like, he was reconciling in general with Del because he gave him holy water.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and I think too, I was really, 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 really focused in on Rafe and Shar. And so, like, I, as a player, legitimately missed that.
The sensory overload.
Yeah, because there was a point where I was like, what? I also, just to, like, reiterate, like, the streaming versus having a podcast, we had a really heavy episode in which, like, I personally, like, broke down a little bit. And Leo was prepping me. She was like, you know, here you go, here you listen to it, but like just don't forget, and like this is still in there, so like, you know, whatever. And I'm listening to it and I'm like, I sound cold.
I don't think you sounded cold at all.
I thought that I was like, you cannot tell that I was actually crying in that moment. Like you can't tell. So like I just feel like to listen to these moments and feel like we don't care about these characters, like there was so much happening, and like I don't know, I'm not like trying to make excuses. It is what it is, but like I it's weird to be in this position.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard because, like I said, if people could see our facial reactions to these moments and the looks of pain whenever it's your turn and you have to, either if it's the two of you, you have to make the decision to keep running and not look back, or like in my moment where I'm like, I have to attack them, right? Like those, like you can see it on our faces much better than you can hear it in our voices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was such a shame too, because like it's funny, these TBK characters, they are meant to be killed. But the problem with that is like we've grown attached to them. Like Del represented so much brevity and so many terrible moments, that even though like Zem and Dell's relationship was very like catfighty.
Mhm.
It was not serious. Like at least from Zamira's point of view, it was like a harmless, this is our relationship, we play fight kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's gone now.
Yeah. Yeah.
As far as we know anyway.
So much.
And that's the thing too, is we do not know that they are meant to be killed.
Yeah, I mean, Zem and
Right.
Char don't know.
So, I mean, on a meta level, I think we've done very, very good with that as well.
Mhm. Yeah.
I think so. I think so too. So now into the last episode of this Cour, episode 47. You, the two of you, and Rafe begin to make your plans to leave the city. In that moment, you realize that Alias never returned back to the inn with Reese. You head to the barracks, and you find Reese has been murdered, presumably by Alias. You end up passing the night at a new hotel because you don't trust the one where you were. You find Erevan in the morning. He sends you to More Bale, where you're hoping to regroup there in another place where you felt at least moderately welcome and safe. I want to talk about Reese's death here because this is something that wasn't planned. It felt right in the moment.
No, it didn't, but continue.
This is another example of something that was kind of a tough pill to swallow because her whole character arc is very different from what I imagined from the beginning. Char / Arthur, you invested a lot of time into thinking about this character and what she could be. And Char was really reaching out to her and trying to find a way to help her. How are you and him coping in this moment?
I'm good. I mean, I'm personally distraught, but I'm also very much like an unfeeling robot for the most part, so I was good. There was one thing that got me in 48, 49.
48?
Yeah, and it was just like, oh, I didn't realize I actually felt for that, but we'll move on with that. Arthur, fine. Char, gone to the world. Like, he's not okay, even a little bit. He... First of all, I mean, he literally picked up a chair and tossed it. Like, he was absolutely
The
livid.
chair that he had been squeaking across the floor.
And
It was, listen, that was...
It was a joke, but it's just like, no, like, he needs to pick something up and fucking toss it to let, like, Zem and Rafe know he's not okay.
Yeah, but the poeticness of, like... So, at 2 separate times, Char went to see Reese. And he was kind of flexing a little bit on that moment by dragging this chair very annoyingly across the floor, right? And then whenever you made up your mind you were going to help her and you didn't do that, you didn't drag the chair that third time, you picked it up and you put it back so as not to annoy her. And then to pick up that chair and throw it after seeing what happened, those moments were so good.
Yeah.
They were so
absolutely.
good.
So I think we may have skipped over it on the recap. Char had made a pendant as well,
right.
out of glass for her in the goddess's symbol.
Mm-hmm.
And it was gone from the body when Char went to check on it.
Yes, it was.
There was also a secretary that was murdered in much of a similar fashion.
Correct.
As well as letters and notes and scribblings from Reese to Char.
Yes.
When she thought she was going to die the first time.
Yes.
So that actually worked out, unfortunately. As far as Char is going to a point right now where he genuinely thought both that people could change and there was hope for them to change, and not that he had the power to change it, but to guide it. And now, again, just completely shattered. How and as far as like what he's feeling towards
Alias,
yeah. He doesn't want to kill her. He wants to sever her connection to Adria and just make her suffer for not being connected to a god.
Mm.
I'm down.
Or make her completely useless.
Speaking of
to
TBK
her.
characters, Alias is a good one.
Mm-hmm.
You guys can thank Kay for that one. He did this to you.
And
Not
also,
me. I didn't do it. It was him.
Yeah, but at the same time as well, Char's goal, aside from being whatever Zamira needs to travel with to help her along the way, is getting that pendant back
Yeah.
because it does not belong to anybody anymore.
Woof. Zem, you hated Reese. Hated her.
Yeah, not a fan.
So I know that whenever I mentioned that Reese had some like skin and stuff under her fingernails because she was fighting back against whatever happened, you were like, good, like hell yeah. Is there any part of Zem that feels bad for this?
So to be clear, when I said good, hell yeah, it was more for like a have that fire, have that fight.
Yeah.
Like I'm glad that you didn't go gently into that dark night or whatever,
Yeah.
but like I don't feel bad. Like she made her choices and I don't expect anyone to feel bad when Zem suffers the consequences of her choices either.
Sure.
So
Yeah, I mean, if Char ever meets up with her sister, he is absolutely spitting venom in her face with that. Like, you let her die.
Oh man. That'd be a good episode for the future. But that's where we end this core. You all made it to Morbale, and we pick up in episode 48. Any last thoughts on this core before we cut it?
Well, I'm excited for the AMAs for these couple episodes as well, because I know there's going to be people that have more questions
Yes.
that we can't think of right now.
So many questions. When people hear, especially these last 3 episodes, they're going to have a lot of feelings.
Gosh, yeah. I don't think so. Yes, we could continue to
We
discuss.
could continue
but-
forever.
For hours, yeah.
All right. So we'll cut it there. Thank you all so much for listening. We can't wait to bring you into Core 4. Wild things are coming. And, follow us on social media at Slay the Stars on Twitter, at Slay the Stars_podcast on Instagram. You can find all those links on our website at www.slaythestars.com. And if you super love us, check on our Patreon at patreon.com/slaythestars. That's it. Cut it.
Bye.
Do you want behind-the-scenes content? Monthly AMAs, character creations to be killed, Patreon shoutouts, the access to our biggest fan, or the most VIP of all, our coffee fund? Then go check out patreon.com/slaythestars. You too can be more than just a fan. You can be a patron. Per somnia ad astra.
Go to slaythestars.com for all episode, important link, cast, and character information.